What was meant to be a routine interview quickly turned into something far more explosive. Roger Federer made an unintentional admission about Eala that struck the tennis world like a thunderbolt, something no one saw coming. The most celebrated athlete in the sport's history appeared to reveal more than he ever intended. And in one unguarded moment, the silence surrounding a previously unknown connection was shattered. What began as a calm, reflective sit-down with a respected Swiss sports network focused on his legendary career, modern tennis, and his retirement legacy suddenly transformed into one of the season's most shocking revelations. Now, the entire tennis community is demanding answers, wondering what Federer may have been concealing about the rising Filipino star and how this unexpected confession could impact the competition. There was nothing to suggest the conversation would drift into dangerous territory. Federer arrived relaxed and almost carefree as the interviewer guided him through familiar ground Wimbledon triumphs, epic battles with Nadal, and the emotional farewell at the Lever Cup. It was standard reflection for a champion who had already stepped away from professional competition. The atmosphere felt warm, safe, and comfortably nostalgic. Then came the pivot. "Roger, you've always had an eye for emerging talent. Who excites you in women's tennis right now?" It sounded like a harmless question, one he had answered countless times with Polish diplomacy, praising established names such as Swiatek, Goff, or Sabalenka without stirring controversy. But this time something shifted. Federer hesitated, not the calculated pause of a seasoned ambassador, but a real conflicted silence, as if he were weighing whether to open a door he had intentionally kept closed. His eyes narrowed slightly, his jaw tightened, and anyone paying close attention could sense the internal debate unfolding in real time. "There's someone," he began before catching himself. The interviewer leaned forward instantly, sensing the change in tone. This was no longer rehearsed territory. "There's a player I've been following for almost 3 years, Federer continued. "Stepping into unexpected ground for almost 3 years now," he continued. "Someone most people aren't talking about yet. Someone I've been involved with behind the scenes." The temperature in the room seemed to shift instantly. "Eala," he said at last, allowing the name to hang in the air like a confession in open court. He admitted he had been mentoring her privately, offering technical advice, studying her matches, even connecting her with former coaches from his inner circle support. He claimed he hadn't extended to anyone outside his own academy. The interviewer's astonishment was unmistakable. This was not public knowledge. No tennis outlet had reported any connection between the Swiss legend and the rising Filipino star. There had been no visible training sessions, no social media hints, no leaks. Federer seemed to realize in real time what he had revealed. His expression flickered with something between regret and relief. The secret was out, and there was no pulling it back. "I probably shouldn't have said that," he added with a nervous chuckle that failed to soften the magnitude of the admission. But it was already too late. Within minutes, the clip was circulating across every major tennis platform. Social media erupted, debates ignited, and journalists scrambled to confirm the details. Eala's name, once familiar mainly to devoted followers of junior and lower-tier tournaments, suddenly dominated global sports headlines. Why would Roger Federer, one of the most revered figures in tennis history, quietly invest his time and expertise in Alex? What potential had he seen that others overlooked? And why had the mentorship remained hidden for so long? That single accidental confession cracked open a mystery that threatened to reshape perceptions of both Federer's retirement pursuits and Eala's meteoric rise. What made the revelation even more startling was that Federer's involvement with Eala was not a coincidence or a passing interest in raw talent. According to him, the connection ran much deeper, and when the full story surfaced, it had the potential to challenge everything fans believed about the sport's most respected icon. The interview didn't end with his initial confession. If anything, having already crossed the point of no return, Federer chose to continue, pulling back the curtain on a mentorship that had remained entirely hidden. He shared that he first noticed Eala during the 2022 U.S. Open Juniors, his tone shifting from hesitant to protective. It wasn't just her talent that stood out, he explained, but her mental architecture, the way she constructed points with calculation and patience, striking decisively when opportunities appeared. It reminded him of players from another era. He described reaching out through mutual contacts and offering technical feedback after studying her match footage. What began as occasional observations gradually developed into regular video analysis sessions where he would break down her serve mechanics, footwork, and decision-making under pressure with the same forensic precision he once applied to his own game. At one point, he revealed that he even connected her with Pierre Paganini, the longtime fitness coach who helped extend his career deep into his late 30s. Hearing Roger Federer openly discuss guiding Eala at such a detailed level only intensified the shock waves already rippling through the tennis world. He went even further, revealing that he had introduced her to Sever Luthi, the coach who had stood beside him for 2 decades and had quietly arranged for her to train at his academy in Switzerland for 2 weeks the previous summer, completely off the record. No media, no announcements. The disclosures kept coming. Private court sessions, nutrition planning, mental performance guidance, even assistance navigating equipment sponsorships. It became clear that Roger Federer had essentially built a discrete development system around Alex, leveraging his entire professional network to fast-track her growth while keeping the arrangement entirely hidden. Why her? The interviewer finally asked, giving voice to the question echoing across millions of viewers' minds. Federer's answer was direct and deeply personal because everyone overlooks her. She comes from a nation without deep tennis infrastructure, without the funding and systemic support many prospects from established tennis powers take for granted. She's fighting against a structure designed to favor players from traditional strongholds. He said he saw something of his younger self in that struggle. Not the Polish champion the world remembers, but the uncertain teenager who needed belief before results justified it. The comparison immediately stirred debate. Federer, after all, grew up in Switzerland with access to high-level coaching and federation, backing hardly the same pathway as a Filipino athlete pushing for global recognition from a country with limited tennis tradition. Critics labeled the analogy tone-deaf, but Federer stood firm, insisting that talent alone never guaranteed success in his career. He credited early believers who supported him before he became a proven winner and argued that Eala deserved that same faith. Then came the boldest statement of all. Within 3 years, she would break into the top 30. Within 5, she would reach at least a Grand Slam quarterfinal. He was staking his reputation on that prediction. For a figure widely regarded as one of the greatest in tennis history, those words carried immense weight. His endorsement could open doors, wild cards, sponsorship deals, media exposure, but it also placed an enormous spotlight on Eala. Expectations that had never existed before now loomed heavily over every match she would play. Each victory would be framed as validation, each loss as doubt. Almost instantly, social media fractured into opposing camps. Some applauding Federer's generosity and vision, others questioning whether his judgment had finally overreached. Supporters praised Federer for using his influence to uplift an overlooked talent, while detractors argued he had placed crushing, unrealistic pressure on a young player still shaping her identity. Some insiders wondered whether such a powerful endorsement might unintentionally disrupt her development by dragging her into a spotlight she wasn't ready to carry. Agents quietly questioned how a mentorship of this scale had remained hidden for so long. Rival players speculated whether similar support had been offered to others, or whether Eala was uniquely compelling. And at the center of the storm stood herself, realizing that her once private journey had suddenly become public property. Federer's confession ignited one unavoidable question. Who exactly is Eala? And what did this teenager from Manila possess that convinced tennis royalty to stake his legacy on her future? Born in May 2005 in Quezon City, Philippines, Eala did not emerge from a tennis dynasty or a system built to produce champions. In a country where basketball commands the cultural spotlight and resources, tennis has long existed on the margins, often limited to families with access to private clubs and international exposure. The Philippines had never produced a modern-era Grand Slam singles champion or a consistent top 50 player. The pathway simply wasn't established yet. Eala began cutting through junior competition with startling authority. At 14, she relocated to Spain to train at the prestigious Rafa Nadal Academy, a decision that required immense financial and personal sacrifice from her family. Her parents, both former athletes, recognized that her development demanded opportunities beyond what was available at home. The gamble was enormous. The statistical odds of professional success razor-thin. She justified that belief quickly. In 2020, she won the girls' doubles title at the Australian Open. In 2021, she added the girls' doubles crown at the French Open. Then in 2022, she captured the girls' singles championship at the US Open, becoming the first Filipino to achieve that milestone. These weren't isolated breakthroughs or fortunate runs. They were decisive, structured victories that signaled a player with both talent and tactical maturity. Suddenly, Federer's bold prediction didn't feel like blind sentiment. It felt like a calculated investment in a competitor whose improbable rise had already begun rewriting expectations. Dominating the junior circuit, however, guarantees nothing on the professional stage. Tennis history is filled with prodigies who ruled at 16 or 17, only to fade once confronted by the physical intensity, tactical complexity, and psychological grind of the main tour. Eala understood that reality better than most. She had seen gifted juniors stall out overwhelmed by pressure, exposed by technical flaws, or unable to adapt to the relentless demands of elite competition. Her junior titles were milestones, not assurances. The true test lay ahead. That is where Roger Federer's involvement reportedly became transformative. Following his public revelation, sources suggested his mentorship went far beyond motivational words. He dissected her game with the same precision he once applied to his own, identifying the specific vulnerabilities that could hinder her transition to the WTA level. Her serve, while effective against juniors, needed greater pace and sharper placement to consistently trouble top-tier opponents. Her court movement required refinement to handle the sharper angles and heavier spin of elite players. Even her competitive mindset, though strong, had to be fortified to endure the psychological warfare of the professional tour that Federer's trusted circle addressed those gaps methodically. Pierre Paganini revamped her conditioning program, building explosive power without sacrificing flexibility or defensive balance. Sever Luthi reshaped her training sessions to emphasize situational awareness and tactical pattern recognition instead of repetitive drilling. Nutrition specialists fine-tuned her recovery process, while sports psychologists introduced visualization techniques Federer himself had relied upon in pressure moments. Most importantly, the mentorship reportedly focused on preparing Eala not just to compete, but to survive and evolve within a system that exposes every weakness. The goal wasn't rapid hype or short-term headlines. It was long-term durability in a sport that punishes the unprepared. Beyond technical adjustments and elite connections, Roger Federer gave her something no training regimen could fabricate: belief. He convinced her that circumstance did not define potential. Months before his public confession, Alex had hinted in an interview at a mentor who told her, "The best players aren't born. They're constructed through relentless attention to detail." She never named him, honoring his request for privacy. But the philosophy was unmistakable. Talent may open doors, yet discipline is what keeps them open. Still, doubts lingered about his motives. Why devote such extensive time and resources to a player with limited professional results? Why cloak the mentorship in secrecy rather than frame it as a public act of generosity? And why attach his meticulously protected legacy to an athlete still navigating the uncertain? Leap from junior promise to tour-level proof. Skeptics proposed strategic image management, casting himself as a benevolent statesman rather than a retired icon receding from relevance. Others speculated that he sought competitive fulfillment through her ascent, filling the void left by retirement. Those within his inner circle offered a simpler explanation. He saw something rare and wanted to shield it from a system that often crushes originality before it matures. According to one former associate, Federer believed modern tennis was drifting toward uniformity, players molded by identical mice drilled through the same methodologies producing similar styles. Eala shaped by an unconventional path, and a nation outside tennis's traditional power centers represented a different blueprint. Protecting that diversity, they argued, was the true motive. Whether his prediction proves visionary or misguided remains to be seen. What is certain is that his endorsement ensured her journey would unfold beneath an unforgiving spotlight. Every loss will invite doubt. Every victory will be measured against his prophecy. What might have been a simple, inspiring mentorship story instead ignited fierce debate, splitting the tennis community over questions of favoritism, privilege, and fairness in a sport already wrestling with issues of access and equity. Criticism arrived almost instantly. Detractors questioned Roger Federer's judgment and ethics, asking why Eala, in particular, had been chosen for such extraordinary backing. Hundreds of promising players struggle for funding, coaching, and exposure. So, what made her worthy of access to resources others could only dream about? Beneath those questions lingered hints of suspicion. Subtle suggestions that something beyond merit may have influenced the decision. Social media quickly transformed into a battleground. Hashtags demanding transparency trended as conspiracy theories multiplied, some alleging hidden business interests. Others speculating about undisclosed financial arrangements tied to Eala's future earnings. No evidence surfaced to support the claims. Yet, the speed and intensity of the narratives illustrated how quickly admiration can morph into doubt in the digital age. Even within professional circles, unease surfaced. Representatives of rival players released carefully crafted statements implying imbalance. One coach from Eastern Europe, whose athlete had faced Eala in juniors, posted a pointed remark about royal treatment versus those forced to grind alone, hinting that opportunity in tennis may depend as much on connections as on performance. The implication was unmistakable, that celebrity endorsement could tilt competitive equity. Prominent voices in women's tennis offered mixed reactions. Some applauded Federer for investing in overlooked talent and using his platform constructively. Others warned that such high-profile intervention, even with noble intent, risked distorting perception and placing an unfair burden on a young athlete still carving her path. What should have been a story about mentorship had evolved into a referendum on influence, access, and the fragile balance between opportunity and fairness in modern tennis. Reactions continued to polarize the tennis world. While some praised Roger Federer's commitment to nurturing talent from underrepresented regions, others criticized the mentorship's singular focus. Why concentrate so much effort on one player instead of creating programs that benefit dozens? A prominent sports journalist argued that if Federer truly aimed to democratize tennis access, he could fund scholarships or training for 50 emerging athletes rather than investing privately in a single protégé. The perception emerged that this was less altruism and more a personal project. Criticism deepened once financial details surfaced. Reports indicated Federer had reportedly spent over $200,000 covering training, travel, accommodation, and equipment resources beyond the reach of most competitors. How could rivals claim fair competition when Eala effectively had an 8-time Wimbledon champion as her personal consultant? Tournament. Organizers faced mounting pressure? Should wildcard entries or other opportunities reflect Federer's influence rather than pure ranking merit? Was there an ethical boundary being crossed by bestowing extraordinary advantages on a single player? Some insisted that champions should either mentor broadly or abstain entirely, never tipping the scales of competitive fairness. Caught in the middle of the controversy, Eala became collateral damage. Her social media accounts were inundated with hostile messages accusing her of being Federer's pet project rather than a legitimate competitor. Her junior accomplishments were dismissed as irrelevant. Critics claimed she only succeeded because of resources her peers lacked. One viral comment mocked, "Congrats on having a famous friend. Let's see how you do without Daddy Federer holding your hand." The psychological impact was immediate and severe. For a young athlete who had maintained a relatively low profile, the scrutiny escalated to levels usually reserved for established stars, and even routine practice sessions became fodder for public debate. Every moment of Eala's career was suddenly under intense scrutiny. Photographs from practice, tournament entries, and match results were dissected and measured against Roger Federer's predictions, rather than reasonable developmental benchmarks. Her initial public response was carefully measured. "I'm grateful for guidance from many mentors throughout my journey. My results will speak louder than any conversation about support systems. I'm here to compete and prove myself through performance." While poised and professional, her statement did little to satisfy critics, demanding explicit acknowledgement of the advantages she had received. Some interpreted her restraint as arrogance, suggesting she failed to recognize the privilege afforded to her. Meanwhile, Federer faced his own storm. Sponsors worried about brand impact, and the Swiss Tennis Federation privately raised concerns over potential conflicts with their existing player development programs. Media outlets that had long celebrated him ran critical pieces, with one column calling his mentorship a wealthy retiree's vanity project that imposed unrealistic expectations on a teenager while self-congratulating generosity. The harshest backlash came from former supporters who felt betrayed. Throughout his career, Federer had championed meritocracy, arguing that results mattered more than connections. Critics now accused him of violating that principle by leveraging his influence to create opportunities for a single chosen player. Yet, beneath the outrage was a more uncomfortable question. Did the current tennis system already favor certain athletes so heavily that Federer's intervention simply leveled an unequal field? Or did it compound the inequities by introducing another layer of advantage? The debate raged on unresolved, leaving a 19-year-old girl from Manila at the center, wondering if the champion she trusted had inadvertently complicated the career he sought to support. What most critics missed was that Federer's investment in Eala was far from random generosity. It was intensely personal. That casual slip of the tongue revealing the mentorship to the world transformed into a defining moment, not just for Eala, but for ongoing discussions about privilege, opportunity, and fairness in modern tennis and the end. The significance of Roger Federer's confession extends beyond whether his prediction about Eala's future proves accurate. Talent alone is never enough. Someone must believe first. Invest before results validate that faith. Federer received that belief decades ago, and now he is attempting to pass it forward. History will ultimately judge whether his choice was wise. But one fact is undeniable. Eala's story is just beginning, and the world is watching every shot she takes. Was Federer's revelation a misstep that imposed unbearable pressure, or the precise catalyst you needed to accelerate her rise? The answer remains to be seen. For those eager to explore more untold stories of tennis's greatest controversies and the pivotal moments that reshaped careers, subscribing and activating notifications ensures you won't miss a single reveal. This journey is only getting started.